The following program contains scenes and language of a frank and explicit nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Filmjitsu, the podcast that wields films like deadly weapons. We are your hosts. I am Mike.
And I am Jay.
On this week's episode of Filmjitsu, for the first time, we have a guest host with us. 7-year-old, allegedly Jason's son, but he looks like a young Oscar Isaac. We have with us today, Diego Santo. Diego, thanks for being here, buddy.
I'm here.
Diego Santo Munoz. Yeah.
I'm here.
Welcome.
On this week's episode of Filmjitsu, we're discussing brand new From the Car in the Parking Lot after the movie Lee Isaac Chung's Twisters. We're also going to do our bottom 5, I guess we would call them guilty pleasures.
Guilty pleasures.
The movies that we love that we know are kind of crap. We'll also play Pick 2, Kick 2 before I reveal what film Jason's going to watch for our next episode.
It's my turn again? Oh, God.
But before all that, let's roll the trailer for Twisters.
The once-in-a-generation tornado outbreak continues across Oklahoma.
We've never seen tornadoes like this before, and we need your help.
No, I don't chase anymore.
Kate, we can save lives.
I'll give you 1 week.
All right, fellas. We got PhDs from NASA, FEMA, and Kate, she's the smartest person I know.
Hey, dudes.
You got quite the reputation, city girl. You think you can disrupt a tornado?
In theory. But in the field, in the moment, I got it wrong.
Jason, this is our first time going to the theater together for the show. I think we got here because we've been talking about Twister nonstop on this program, and it seemed like something that we finally had to do.
It's true.
And so here we are in the car to talk about this movie with our little buddy Diego here.
Yeah.
Yes, I am here.
And I think what I want to know is, as we go into this conversation,
Sure.
Does this new movie sit in the shadow of the original, or are we going to get to talk about its own thing?
What I first noticed while watching Twisters, and it was an immediate thing that occurred to me, and I don't know why I haven't thought about this sooner, is the fact that every generation has their own take on each story. And in this case, you and I absolutely loved Twister when we were kids. Mm-hmm. We thought it was great. Diego, what did you think of the first Twister? Did you like it?
I really liked it.
You really liked the first Twister. And I think it really spoke to us at the time when we were, younger. I mean, this is 25 odd years later now, maybe more, right? Almost 30 years.
That's insane.
Right. It is insane to even think that way. But yet, when we were younger, it really resonated with us. Now, a little bit older, a little bit wiser. Maybe it's a little goofy. Maybe it's a little staged. Maybe the effects don't hold up the way they did. When you watch this one, very diverse cast, very different look and feel, very much a different kind of pace, a different type of acting.
Yeah.
In a cutting pattern that's much faster, right? So when you watch something like this, you think, wait a minute, this is made for audiences of today.
Yeah, this feels very much of the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think having the inclusion of social media and YouTube streamers and all of that stuff, and not in a way that was overbearing or gimmicky. I was a little afraid at the early goings that maybe we were headed down a path that was going to be a little too much of a good thing.
For sure.
And I think what this movie manages in a lot of ways, which seems insane to say, is just the right amount of restraint in just the right places.
All the right places.
What is ultimately a
big,
I have to tell you.
Yeah.
I'm coming out of the theater a little surprised at how much I like Twisters.
Shocked because we picked this movie, Diego. We picked this movie. What we do on this show, Diego, is we watch terrible movies. That's what we make each other do. And here we had decided this was going to be terrible. Well, oops on us, at least for you and I. Now, Diego, what did you think of Twisters, this new movie that we just watched?
I'm scared. That's all I can say.
You were scared?
Yeah, I'm scared.
You're still scared?
Yeah, I'm still scared.
What was so scary about it for you?
all the people getting picked up by the tornado?
Well,
And
there was
that's
a body count in this movie.
Wait,
Yeah, that's a great point, because something that was definitely different than the original, which had its destruction and its mayhem. There was certainly a death toll, I guess, in the original, but this one very much does feel like people are in danger. There is, like you say, a body count. The tornadoes weren't villains exactly, but I think what this movie was trying to show is that these storms pose a real danger to people, which I think hinged on the entire character development from our lead, from Daisy Edgar Jones as Kate.
Kate, yeah. And Glenn Powell as Tyler, too. He's from that area, right? So he's really very much a part of wanting to protect the people of that area just as much as Daisy Edgar Jones's character is. And they're both so good looking and smart and I would say charismatic, but they're not charming.
Yeah, I have to say that fortunately for this movie, in my opinion, they are lucky that Glenn Powell is an F5 level talent, because
he's
Daisy
good.
Edgar Jones for me was pretty underwhelming in the early goings of this
really?
film.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and what was interesting is actually by the end, I really felt like I had grown to understand that character throughout the course of the movie, because I wasn't very taken by this cast in the early running, especially that friend group she has in the beginning. It felt a little bit like Twister, the new class.
Yeah,
and I thought,
it really did.
I was worried, are these the people we're going to be following? And the movie does something really clever, which it introduces Glenn Powell and his crew as the antagonists, right? These loose cannon, wild, in it for the clicks team of storm chasers, and then very slowly and cleverly flips that on us so that our sympathies come to lie with them as Kate inserts herself with Tyler and his team, and all of a sudden our allegiances shift away from the original team that Kate was with, led by Anthony Ramos, who I adore from the Hamilton musical, and I thought was kind of underutilized in this film.
Oh, I disagree. I think he was great, because I think that what he was doing was, at first, he's positioned as a friend and he's almost taking up that Carrie Elway's space, but then they sort of transition that over to his sidekick guy there, who's just kind of a jerk, right?
In it for the money.
In it for the money. And what I liked about this movie was that you made a joke a while ago about who's Carrie Elway's character working for? It was a big tornado, right? Or something like that. Here, you get a lot more rationale behind what they're doing, and it was very well reasoned.
It was, yeah.
This script is far more smart than I expected.
Yeah.
Far more.
I agree.
And it really levels up a lot of what Twister was trying to do. It's almost like Twister was a rough draft. This is a more fully thought out draft. However, where's the charm? Because this is not a charming cast. I wasn't in love with the characters the way I was in love with Diego. What's your favorite part of the first Twister movie? What's your favorite? Who's your favorite character?
Dusty.
Yeah,
Dusty's my favorite
Dusty, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, who's absolutely hilarious. He has most of the greatest lines in the movie. One of your favorite scenes in the movie was, Diego, what was it?
When Dusty tries to kiss the guy.
He tries to kiss the driver of the other car there, Eddie. Yeah, right. Exactly. So, Dusty really resonates, as does Aunt Meg, right? Alan Ruck's character, Rabbit, is really, really good in that film. And of course, you've got Bill Paxton in the lead with Helen Hunt. I mean, that is a wonderful cast. They're not real people necessarily.
Sure.
There's much more pathos in Twisters. There's much more realness in everything. But I wasn't as engaged in their struggle until the third act, where things got so amped up from the tornado aspect that poor Diego was terrified.
Yeah.
He thought it was too, what do you think it was too intense? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it was too intense.
Yeah, I mean, there were fire tornadoes at one point there, sir, weren't there? Yeah, you're not wrong.
Fire tornadoes.
You're not wrong. That is scary. And I think to Dad's point, I was not quite taken with the charm of this cast when Glenn Powell was that over-the-top, cartoonish rogue character. And it wasn't until they sort of settled that down and humanized him, and he and Kate start to have not quite a flirtation, but an understanding of one another. He became that overwhelmingly charming guy that he is in so many things. He's hot off the heels this year of Richard Linklater's Hitman, a movie that I'm a little bit more lukewarm on than a lot of other people, which surprised me because you know how much I love Linklater.
Yeah.
But Glenn Powell is undeniably good in that film. And even earlier in this year in Anyone But You with Sydney Sweeney, where he basically plays 6 packs and a smile, right? And so he's in a moment. He is definitely in a moment right now. And I would say that Glenn Powell, a man who almost saved cinema in Top Gun Maverick a couple of years back, he's at the top of his game. He's as big as it gets in Hollywood right now.
Flow is clean, pulling tons of warm, moist air from the south.
And when that warm air and moisture busts through the cap, it explodes in the atmosphere, creating an anvil. The vertical wind shear begins to rotate the updraft, forming a mesocyclone.
And here's the mystery.
We don't know how a tornado forms. We see the hook on the radar, but
What are all the invisible factors coming together?
I found that Daisy Edgar Jones had a great character in Kate. I was really invested in her story. I felt like she was doing a great job anchoring the film. And then they became a dyad that worked really, really well for me. What I will say about Glenn Powell is the woman that was sitting next to me, when he walked out and the rain was hitting him in his white t-shirt, let out an audible,
I mean, fair, right?
I couldn't believe I actually heard a grown woman say this.
The man is a snack. But to the film's credit, it makes a very deliberate choice never to turn into a romance.
It is so smart. You said it about restraint.
Yeah, and I don't think we want to go into spoilers necessarily, but
right.
I think the film has a very restrained approach to what is a big bombastic summer action flick.
It's funny because when I was watching this, I felt like I was watching the birth of Bill and Joe.
Yeah.
Like this was some sort of weird alternate universe prequel to Twister. Like this is the meet cute. The script from Mark L. Smith and Joseph Kosinski, and it hilariously attributed also to Michael Crichton for the original story stuff from Twister.
That guy's name's on everything.
It's a solid script. And Lee Isaac Chung, what is he doing?
That blew me away.
It's a very unexpected turn of events to see him direct this sort of popcorn film. But he brought, as we keep saying, there's a humanity to this.
What this movie does, to Diego's point, is really show the human toll of these things. We see cities being decimated. We see a lot more of the humanitarian side of things. This film has a number of sequences where the whole point is to get to town and help the people. It might actually have maybe one too many of those get to town and help the people sequences.
That is a tough balance to strike in a popcorn film. I think that it's just simply not as fun and way more intense. It made me feel more like the way that some of those horror remakes are, where the characters are much more fleshed out. There's a much better screenwriting hand at work, but you're sort of lost when it comes to the fun aspect of the thing. And instead what it is it becomes too intense. Because I think Twister did a really good job of saying, hey, let's get real for a second with the Aunt Meg sequence. And you see the destruction of the town and how there was no warning and all of that stuff, when coupled with the stuff that happened to Jo when she was a little girl, which was very scary to you, right? What happened to her when she was a little girl?
Her dad got sucked into a tornado.
Yeah. And that was one of the only times you saw that kind of thing happen in the original Twister. Here you get it a bunch more times, right? That balance between this is a popcorn flick that's fun and exciting with these things are real and they're scary and we're trying to honor it. That's a tough balance to strike. And I think that Twisters doesn't do quite the job that Twister did with it. Where it's like they sort of tip the hand a little bit with Twister, say, yes, okay, absolutely, this is a real thing. Okay. Here they're like, no, it's real. It's very real, but also eat your popcorn.
Come on, baby. Come on, please. Please. Come on.
There it is.
Yeah, baby!
I think what Lee Isaac Chung also brought to this, and it was sort of like a kick in the face to the original Twister, was the fact that when people went through tornadoes, they looked like they went through tornadoes. When you see the lead character, Kate, come out of the twister at the beginning of the film. She has a tear in her leg. She's covered with blood. This continues throughout the entire film. These people do not come out of these things unscathed. Right. And that was something that was sort of laughable almost in the original Twister, where they would just kind of walk out, they'd have some mud all over them, and that'd be it, and then they'd be laughing.
And what this did well, speaking of that original, is we do not get a lot of nods and homages to the original film, apart from Dorothy, I think, which was really kind of the big one.
Yeah.
There weren't a lot of callbacks to Twister in there in a way that would have been distracting or a way that would have been kind of eye-rolly fan service. There wasn't any of that stuff.
No, if anything, it was very subtle.
Yeah.
Like things like Kate's wardrobe at one point was exactly the same outfit as worn by Joe in the first movie. So no tie. It wasn't like she was the daughter of Bill, Bill and Joe. It was nothing like that. It was a completely separate story, just bridged by Dorothy, and that was it. And the idea of killing tornadoes rather than just studying them really raises the stakes considerably.
And it makes some sense because, again, what is the end game with the plot? In the first one, it's they're trying to capture data. Well, they couldn't just do that again. So here it's a step further. How do we not only identify tornadoes, but how do we stop them?
Yeah.
And this movie does a really great job of making that a big goal, sort of a theme, but also really specific to some of those action set pieces as well. How do we stop this tornado right now?
Yes, exactly.
And we get some of that.
Yeah,
so
you do.
This movie's operating on a lot of levels.
Diego, if you had the chance to decide if there would be a third Twister movie, less fire tornadoes?
No, I like the fire tornado.
Keep the fire tornadoes. Don't care about the characters. Directed by Diego Santo Munoz.
Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Jay, what an absolute goddamn delight to have little Mr. Diego join us for the review. I loved it. It was fun to watch Twisters and have a young person's perspective. Here we are as two kind of like self-important, grumpy old sons of bitches sometimes. It was fun to have a kid there to be like, what did you think, Diego? And he was so up for it. It was a blast. So thanks for making sure that he was along for the ride. I hope we can find another movie down the line to do that again.
I think you were just happy that he smuggled in those breadsticks for you.
Totally clutch. Unbelievable. A+ move by that kid. We are now going to do our bottom 5. And for this episode, we decided to do our bottom 5 favorite movies, or put another way, kind of our bottom 5 guilty pleasures. I'm not somebody who necessarily believes in the idea of guilty pleasures, so there's not a lot of guilt here for me, but I think I wanted to look at some of those movies that I could identify as being kind of objectively bad, and yet I still love them. So yeah, that's where I went, but sure. I'm curious what your approach was, and I'd love to hear your number 5.
Well, I'm running a little bit counter to what you just said. It's weird. When I look at lists of biggest guilty pleasures for people, I rarely see anything that I would classify as a guilty pleasure. There's a whole lot of hand wringing around that term.
Yeah.
So many people seem kind of scared to admit that they're ashamed of something they like. So instead they say, there's no such thing as a guilty pleasure. I'm not guilty about any of the things I like. But then they go and they list off a bunch of movies, and you know what? Almost none of them are really, truly guilty pleasures. These lists, they regularly include things like Independence Day or Big Trouble in Little China. Movies that I think may be schlocky, but which they're undeniably entertaining, and to most moviegoers. So, like you, with this bottom 5, Mike, I wanted to truly plumb the depths of my personal shame and choose movies that I enjoy, where I think that most people who are intelligent and thoughtful and considerate, they don't. they don't like these movies. So
Okay.
so they can keep their Armageddons, they can keep their mummy movies with Brendan Fraser and Tremors and Happy Gilmore, because all of those are meant to be exactly what they are. They're popcorn flicks that are good for laughs and thrills, and they're nowhere near what I would call worthy of guilt. So I'm here to thoroughly and completely humiliate myself with these choices.
So is it just going to be Sucker Punch 5 times?
Maybe it is. I bet, you know what? I bet you could actually do my bottom 5 guilty pleasures. I bet you could.
I am curious about this because I had the same thought. I thought to myself, I bet Santo could get at least a couple of these. And you know what? I'm going to jot some down right now. I don't want to spoil it and get ahead of myself, but I am going to jot a couple titles down that I imagine are going to be on your list.
I think that the problem with this list is kind of, it does have to strike that balance. What are you ashamed of? Because that's sort of the thing. Like, I wanted to get to, what am I uncomfortable with admitting to a group of people?
Yeah, and I was excited for you to do this list because I know your catalog of Z-grade cinema, bad films, you've seen a lot more garbage than I have, and you enjoy that to a greater extent than I do. So I was excited to see kind of what that balance would be between you and I. I knew that if any of us were going to have bigger name titles on their list, it would be me, probably more so than you. But I think there are probably a couple of big titles that are going to appear on your list. I think for me, it wasn't so much about shame. I don't experience shame when it comes to those movies, but I do think that there are movies that I can identify as being bad and I like them anyway. So it's more about maybe confession than shame for me.
With all that said, I might as well just go ahead and start. And this is going to be one of the ones that I know you call. And it's Suicide Squad. From 2016.
That's the first one I wrote down. It's the first one I wrote down. Yeah. Suicide Squad.
Yep. I knew it. You know, this isn't James Gunn's weekender flick he made while he was tossed on his ass by Disney for the shit he wrote on Twitter back when he was like an ultra independent filmmaker. This is David Ayer's 2016 sloppy, crazy, barely a cohesive narrative Suicide Squad, which might be one of the worst plotted films of all time, and is clearly a slapdash affair due to studio intervention. It's loud, it's stupid, filled with dunderheaded exposition and over-the-top characters, but you know what? I fucking adore it. Straight up. I think it's far superior to Gunn's cheeky and not nearly as interesting retake on this team of anti-heroes from the DC Comics universe. I mean, remember, this is the movie that made Margot Robbie a star as Harley Quinn. But we also get Will Smith, who's all charismatic and snarky, yet sort of dangerous, as Deadshot, a character that I would watch with 50 times more enthusiasm than Deadpool. Joel Kinnaman as Rick Flag. He's surprisingly likable jarhead who acts as like the honorable moral center of the group, despite walking around with a remote that he could detonate micro explosives in their heads with.
Yeah.
and it just goes on and on. There are all these great Viola Davis,
right?
Who's this seemingly indestructible. Oh my God. She's like this agency head. She gives zero fucks when she shoots a room full of like hardworking employees. Like they did nothing wrong other than they were there. And she's like, you know, I feel as though there are so many interesting, neat characters and character chemistry and insane action sequences and zany stuff. But of course, the thing that's probably most, I guess, controversial about Suicide Squad, other than the fact that apparently David Ayer is still clamoring for his own David Ayer cut of the movie. But aside from that, it is, I think, Jared Leto's take on the Joker.
Yeah.
This sort of hip hop grill, you know, he's wearing a grill, he's tattooed all over the place. I love it.
Do you really?
Absolutely adore. Yes.
Wow.
There's a kind of anarchy in him, a kind of edginess, a kind of unpredictability. It doesn't feel at all like Heath Ledger's Joker, which I love. It doesn't feel like Jack Nicholson's Joker. He completely created his own persona. And he says some of the weirdest shit.
Listen, you are my gifts to this handsome hunka. You belong to him now.
The movie doesn't have a plot until one of the Suicide Squad just sort of flips out and becomes a witch full time. And that was Cara Delevingne's character. I think her name was like Dr. June Moon. Jesus, awful. And she intermittently turns into this witch character that becomes the villain of the movie. Have you ever seen a movie where you're introducing a set of characters and you're setting up something and then one of the characters spins off and becomes the villain out of nowhere, and that's your central story? It's so fucking weird, so audacious, that I can't help but love how bizarre it is. And when you combine it with the cast chemistry, when you combine it with all the action sequences and the visual effects and everything else, this becomes my favorite movie of the DCEU, probably since Christopher Reeve fought Zod back in Superman 2.
I decided for my list to do a little bit of data mining. I had a couple of titles that jumped right out at me, but
yeah,
I wanted to dig a little bit deeper. Do you know what Flickcharts is, Jay?
Yeah, you told me about it. You're the one that brought me into Flickcharts, and I find it amazing,
sure,
honestly.
So for those who don't know, it's a website where it will give you two films pitted against one another, and you simply have to choose which one you like more than the other. Put another way, you could think of it as like pick one, kick one, right?
Yeah.
So you keep this up, and eventually when you do it over and over and over compulsively like I have, you end up with this personal ranking of your favorite films. And it doesn't always make sense, because sometimes when you take a look at the whole master list, you're like, how did this movie make it so far up? Or how did this movie make it so far down? But whatever. Overall, I think the data is reliable. I looked at it today and decided to go through this list and rank it based on what movies appear on my list that I know are not good movies, but they appear on Mike's favorite list anyway.
Oh, that's awesome.
So my number 5 is a movie directed by John Woo with the same screenwriter as Speed.
Yes.
Hypothetically, a movie directed by John Woo with the same screenwriter as Speed should not be on a list like this. But my number 5 is a stupid as hell action movie with a stupid as hell cast featuring John Travolta, Christian Slater, and Fox Sports host and NFL Hall of Famer Howie Long. I'm going with Broken Arrow.
This movie, right? Howie Long is what makes it.
Howie Long, who apparently was supposed to have a smaller role in the movie, but they liked the dailies and they increased his role. I saw this movie back in 1996 for my friend Chris Liakis' birthday party. Shout out to Chris, who I know is a listener of this show.
Oh, nice.
That year for his birthday, we went to Pizza Hut and then we went to see Broken Arrow. I looked it up. It was probably the movie that we could get all the moms to agree on, because also in theaters that weekend was From Dusk Till Dawn, Don't Be a Menace to South Central While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood, and Dunstan Checks In, which I'm going to guess that one was probably on us. So Travolta is chewing almost as much scenery in this movie as Howie Long's Flat Top. There are boxing scenes, there's machine gun battles, there's bare knuckle train car brawls, there are guns being fired at nuclear warheads, and dialogue like this.
I say, God damn, what a rush! Woo! Son of a bitch! Shockwave took down the damn chopper.
SEMP, electromagnetic pulse. Nuclear blast sends it out for miles. Everything electronic shuts down, including choppers and radios.
Deke, you the man. I'm the man.
I know it's bad. I know the script is ridiculous, and I still might put it on the moment we're done recording.
Well, at my number 4 is a much beloved film that is beloved and loathed in equal measure But those who love it and watch it annually at Christmas time, like me, usually do admit that, yeah, it's a mess. Each storyline, and there are way too many, has some bizarrely upsetting or weird or off-putting situation or characters. Mike, at number 4 on my list is Love Actually. I adore Love Actually, and I'm not kidding when I say I watch it every Christmas time.
Don't a lot of people do that? This one I wouldn't have. I never would have written this one down. Isn't this a movie that people kind of like?
People like it, but they're ashamed that they like it, and here's why.
Oh, okay.
Alan Rickman cheats on Emma Thompson. Emma Thompson tells her friend Liam Neeson, who is suffering the loss of his wife, that he needs to man up and stop moping around. Jesus. Liam Neeson tells his dead wife's young son, that he's now stepfather to, that he'll need to fuck off if Neeson ever gets a shot at supermodel Claudia Schiffer. Plot twist, she plays the mom of one of the kids' school crushes. Colin Firth proposes to a woman he's never had a proper conversation with that cleans his house because he likes driving her home each day. Hugh Grant, playing a single prime minister, falls for the positively stunning caterer, played by Martine McCutcheon, who literally everyone calls fat when she's most certainly not. Bill Nighy sings the most bullshit Christmas song ever that tops the charts because he promises to shake his old nude ass on TV. 2 no-name actors do a sex scene as new doubles and then fall in love. One down on his luck dipshit decides to go to America because women there love British accents, and he promptly ends up in a 5-way with 4 gorgeous co-eds played by Denise Richards, Shannon Elizabeth, January Jones, and Elisha fucking Cuthbert.
Is that real?
Yeah, this is real. This happens.
I haven't seen this movie. Are you sure your brain didn't make up that last part?
Bro, it's all on film. This movie is unbelievable. Laura Linney can't bang her office crush because of her needy, developmentally disabled brother. That one. And in what is the single most troubling thread of the whole film, Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead, actor Andrew Lincoln, creepily videotapes Keira Knightley at her wedding, which is to his best friend. She's getting married to his best friend.
Oh.
And then confesses his love on poster board messages while pretending to be a Christmas caroler. Because at Christmas, you, quote, have to tell the truth. Fuck, Mike. It's all exhausting and so painfully stupid. And I adore every goddamn minute of it. All of it. I've even ranked the individual stories from best to worst and debated people about those rankings. It's the looniness of the whole thing, I think, and the sheer audacity of it being such a Grinch in so many ways and yet still so charming. Because within all of these troubling scenarios, there's a sense of heart and fun that's, for me, undeniable. So, yes, I think a lot of people feel exactly like I do. Exactly like I do. We're all well aware that this is an awful, awful movie for so many terrible reasons. But you know what? We love it. And we watch it every fucking year.
I realize that Christmas is the time to be with the people you love. And people I love is, in fact, you.
Well, this is a surprise. 10 minutes at Elton John's, you're as gay as a maple.
You have inspired me. I think this year is going to be the year I finally watch Love Actually. I had no idea what I was missing out on. Yeah. Based on your review alone right now, it's on the list for this Christmas.
Oh, shit. I would love it if you did that. I love it. We got to compare notes and rank those stories.
Well, then, with my number 4, you already had your superhero movie. It seems only fair that also I have one somewhere on my list. I'm starting to think that maybe there's just something about the movies I owned on VHS in my mid-teens.
Oh, for sure.
Because my number 4 is from the year 1995. It's honestly maybe a little embarrassing how much I like, to this very day, Joel Schumacher's Batman Forever.
Oh, is that the one with Jim Carrey?
Yeah, I wore out the tape on this one, and not in a Jason Santo Fast Times at Ridgemont High kind of way, but I watched this thing a boatload, a bat boatload. Now,
oh man,
you need to cut me a little bit of slack because I, sir, am a combat veteran of the Jim Carrey wars, having been the exact right age
for sure
for Jim Carrey in his comedic prime. I was a 13-year-old kid when Ace Ventura and Dumb and Dumber came out. I was a powder keg of obnoxious teenage energy, and Jim Carrey was the match. So when a Batman movie with Jim Carrey came out, I didn't stand a chance. I was Bruce Wayne's parents, and Jim Carrey was the dark alley that I was going to walk down.
So that's Joel Schumacher is the Joker in that.
I guess so. And so it's interesting though. I was thinking about like, okay, Batman Forever, I will watch that. If it's on, I'm going to watch it. I know it's fucking terrible, but I'm going to watch it anyway. That was 95. Broken Arrow was 96. I'm stuck in a moment.
You're right
here.
In that zone.
Well, and I got thinking a little bit about it. You know what I do for a living, right? I know a thing or two about the human brain. And what human research shows us, Jay, is that your musical taste, your taste in music is virtually cemented in your brain between the ages of 13 and 16 years old.
Wow.
It seems that it's possible that my taste in shitty movies might also be cemented from the years between 13 and 16 years old.
My number 3 is probably more in keeping with what you expected out of my list. And it's the only entry in my list that probably fits the profile as you laid it out at the beginning. You said that there was a bunch of obscure, like potentially there would be obscure movies. I did not go that route, mostly because it would be very isolating of me to talk about such, such films. And honestly, even though I've seen a lot of Drek and a lot of stuff that nobody's ever seen, I haven't enjoyed most of it. So I'm patient with it and I understand it, but that doesn't mean I necessarily love it. But this movie I do absolutely love. And some people will say that they quote unquote love this 1982 grade Z horror film from director Frank Henlotter. But most claim as much because it's sort of hip to like something so bizarre and depraved, but not me. I simply love this movie because it's 100% pure filth. And Henlotter gives zero fucks about what's right or believable or, even vaguely ethically acceptable. The movie Basket Case. If you haven't seen it, the story is about a social outcast named Dwayne Bradley who comes to New York City with a large wicker basket and revenge on his mind. You see, Dwayne was born with a conjoined twin named Belial growing out of his abdomen, and the two were surgically separated by a crew of ne'er-do-well doctors. Belial is tossed out, but Dwayne recovers him, and the pair go on a killing spree that begins with their own father, passes through all the doctors who perform the operation, and ends in one of the most horrific yet hilariously gross scenes ever with Dwayne's new would-be girlfriend, Sharon. At the ending of the film, which finds Belial and Dwayne fighting and then dangling out a high-up window, is, I feel, surprisingly tragic, and there are many moments within this grimy flick where the affection between the brothers, as well as the friction caused by their murderous ways, seems genuine. I'm not saying that this isn't a video nasty. It's shot on 16 millimeter for $35,000. It's got a full-on porno vibe and gore for days, but it's also a time capsule of New York's 42nd Street culture and a bygone era of dangerous, weird, and dirty city living.
Yeah.
The cast is full of misfits, and the special effects are outrageous. This flick manages to surprise and entertain every time I watch it. And apparently, I'm not alone, Mike. In 2017, the movie was remastered from its original 16mm print and inducted into the Museum of Modern Art in Manhattan.
I am so thrilled that you put this on here because I toyed with it as well. And it honestly would have been crazy for us to have done this whole list. You and I, our shared history together without a Frank Henenlotter film on here somewhere. Henenlotter has only directed 13 films.
That many? I thought it was even less than that. Wow.
Yeah, but one of them is Basket Case. There's also Brain Damage, Frankenhooker, and Bad Biology, all of which could have been on this list for me. Well, in a similar vein to your 80s lunacy, I also decided to dip back a little bit beyond my early teen years to 1988 because I had to have a canon film on this list somewhere.
Yeah. Golden and Globus.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, for me, look no further than the 1988 crotch-kicking classic, Bloodsport.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Jean-Claude Van Damme goes to Hong Kong to kick ass in the Kumite, a secret underground martial arts tournament where basically cartoon characters murder each other for reasons.
It's Street Fighter. It's the video game. But just, yeah.
That's right. Yep. Jason, I would stop recording right now and go watch Bloodsport.
Get out of here. Really?
Right now.
Oh my God.
I would do it right now. This movie is so... You have to imagine what this movie... And again, okay, I probably did see it around my
around 13. Yeah,
like,
right.
Wait a minute. So like a bunch of... There's a guy who like jumps around like he's a chimpanzee. There's the big fat... Like it's all of these, like you say, they're like video game
It's exactly like video game, yeah.
It's what the UFC was in the early years of the UFC before like the Gaming Commission got involved. And so to me, it was just like all-star fantasy murder where Jean-Claude Van Damme gets to come in and fight against these insane characters.
Yeah.
And I will never not watch it. Also, pretty sure there's like a couple of pretty sweet boob scenes in that movie. And I know that was of interest to me at the time. It's still of interest to me at this time. But for me, yep, I guess if I'm going to admit to a canon film, it's probably going to be JCVD's Bloodsport.
I think what's interesting about your list is that it uncovers the sort of emotional immaturity that we have as like teenagers, right? As really young teenagers, and the reasons that we loved things so much when we saw those movies, and we still harbor those affections despite time, despite intelligence, despite experience.
Yeah, we
still feel very connected to them. You know, and I think that's your list really speaks to that the fact that you could see something on HBO 30 times, you know, and maybe know it's not great, but maybe you don't know and you just watch it 30 times and then it's, you know, Terminator 2. Anyway, at number 2,
son of a bitch.
At number 2, I have the most obvious choice, I think, that could ever end up on a bottom 5 guilty pleasures list. It's Howard the Duck. So
wow. Okay.
Yeah, right.
All right.
So I love it. It's true. I think it needs a little backstory. Along with his wife, Gloria Katz, Willard Hayek Jr., the director and writer of Howard the Duck, collaborated with George Lucas on a number of pictures, including American Graffiti and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. But not only that, they were apparently consultants on the original screenplay for Star Wars. But it's his writing and directorial effort here, Howard the Duck, that most people remember. Hayek.
Well, if there was ever going to be a movie that you would love and be embarrassed about loving, I can absolutely understand why Howard the Duck is that, because wow.
And I got to be real here. Have you seen Leah Thompson in this movie?
Mm-hmm.
Because literally any alien from any corner of space would go for her. So all those pearl clutchers worrying about bestiality in a children's flick, well, they're probably right. But
there is a duck boner. Is there not a duck boner?
No. Oh yeah, his feathers go up. Yes, that's right. Yeah. His feathers right up. And she goes, "Oh, Howard."
Yeah. If my number 2 movie was playing on a TV just over in the middle distance, I wouldn't have paid attention to a single word you just said. Because my number 2, I would like to tell you that I don't love the ever-living hell out of the 1998 sex comedy Can't Hardly Wait. But I cannot tell you that.
It's so good.
Oh, thank goodness.
Love it. I am there with you.
If this thing is on, I'm watching it.
Mm-hmm.
The directors, Harry Elfont and Deborah Kaplan, made this, Josie and the Pussycats, and that's it.
Yeah, that killed them. Yeah.
Yeah. It stars such cinematic luminaries as Jennifer Love Hewitt, Seth Green, and that kid who was Jack in Hook. It is your basic bitch, one crazy night of a high school party movie. This movie is problematic as fuck. And frankly, I don't think it flew back then in 98 either, but I absolutely could not care any less. I am such a sucker for this shit. It's probably honestly worse than my number 1, but my flick chart is leading the way here. So 1998's Can't Hardly Wait.
Good stuff, man. Well, I'm there with you if you ever want to throw it on the TV. To the surprise of no one, especially you, my number 1 is Terminator 3. No, it's not. No, but it's not surprising at all what my number 1 is, and that's Sucker Punch. Yeah, you called it out early. You knew. Sucker Punch, what can I say about it? Zack Snyder, who I decimate on this show over and over again, to the point where you almost banned me from talking about him. We did ban me talking about a certain superhero franchise that he worked on, so I will not mention that. But he called this, which is it's an original passion project that he put on hold to direct The Watchmen. So he called this Alice in Wonderland with machine guns. Maybe I should just leave it there. I really don't know. It probably is all you really need to know. The movie, it's like an anime-inspired fanboy spectacle that both sexualizes its leads, especially when they're in the real world, because there's 2 worlds in this thing, and then it simultaneously sort of tries to empower them. I don't know. The plot, if there is one, it oscillates between the sort of harrowing existence of these 2 orphaned young women in this really gross mental hospital that farms out its sexy patients to crime bosses who love modern dance. I don't know, because you never see the dances, so I'm not even entirely sure what happens, because every time they dance, they flip into this fantasy realm where they have these insane action sequences where they're sort of uncovering talismans, if you will, that are going to get them out of the insane asylum that they're in. And for whatever reason, they're guided by the sure hands of Scott Glenn. The movie makes no sense. It defies all time and space. I'm really not sure what's happening at any given point, but what I can tell you is the marriage of the music, the style, the attractive ladies, the action is a narcotic of some sort. To the point where I actually edited a fan trailer of this movie.
Yeah, can we put that on the website, you think?
Yeah, we can put it on the website for
well,
sure.
Great. So I want all of our listeners to make their way over to filmjitsu.net because I think more than anything Jason's going to say tonight, seeing the tender love and care he put into cutting his own fan trailer for the movie Sucker Punch tells you everything you need to know.
I will say that my oldest son helped me with this trailer considerably.
Yeah, it was a whole family affair. It was a real...
Yeah, this was a bonding moment for me and my son. He has not seen the full movie, which is hilarious. He's only seen the bits and pieces, the action sequences. I've never shown him the whole thing. Like I said, there's something so almost like hypnotic about it. That and the fact that it stars an insanely incredible cast, almost at the level of Gunpowder Milkshake, and hilariously, Carla Gugino is one of them.
Oh, so, how about that?
But you got Jenna Malone, you got Vanessa Hudgens, you've got Emily Browning. It's like this is just a great cast, and I think it's one of the earliest roles from Oscar Isaac.
As I pointed out earlier, your son is the spitting image of a young Oscar Isaac. So maybe that's what that's all about.
Maybe it is.
Well, sir, we're at my number one. It might be a friendship test.
Ooh.
Before I say it,
okay.
Anyone who knows me, take a second, see if you can guess what it is.
I always think it's Hocus Pocus, but it...
Yes, of course. Of course it's Hocus Pocus. You know what? I feel so comforted that you and I were able to guess each other's number one for this list.
That is
I think that's probably a good thing. You know that not only do I love this movie, but I have loved this movie since 1993. I'm not one of these late to the party now that it's cool Hocus Pocus fans. There's so much merchandise and books and all... You can attest that I am an original Hocus Pocus gangster. I've been talking about this movie since you and I met. I have tried to sucker you into watching this movie.
Yes.
I have been singing its praises. You've been like, Merrigan, fuck off. Like way before it was the big Halloween staple that it has rightly become.
All I want to say, Mike, is that your love of Hocus Pocus forced me when I had children to embark on the cinematic expedition that is Hocus Pocus and validate everything that you said about it. It is wonderful.
Right.
It is wonderful. And you were right.
I am going to record that. That's going to be my new ringtone. When anybody calls me, it's just you saying, you were right.
Mike, I have to admit that this was such a fun topic. Guilty pleasures. So I am so intrigued as we move our way into Kick 2, Pick 2, what you're going to do. Are you going to stick with this theme or are you going to go in a
You know that
different...
I am. You know that I am. And I'm going to try and make it difficult for you.
Ooh.
So sometimes these are way too easy.
Sure.
For you. And I tried really hard not to do that. Okay. Our Pick 2, Kick 2 for this episode is going to be 4 films that I know are guilty pleasures of probably both of ours, and I'm going to make it tough.
Okay.
So, the 4 films are Return of the Living Dead, Con Air, 976 Evil, and maybe one of the movies that I can't believe wasn't on your list, Reign of Fire.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
You son of a bitch.
I have experienced firsthand the most impassioned defense of this movie. And you're not wrong about it.
Had I thought of it, I probably would have put it on my list because I try to make other people watch it and they don't get it. They just don't get it. But I mean, so like the level of earnestness and intensity that McConaughey alone brings, never mind Christian Bale.
Also the scene where they're like telling the little children the story of Star Wars is brilliant.
Epic.
So I know how much you love this movie.
I'm going to stick with Reign of Fire.
Okay.
and I need to know what you're going to do.
As much as I love 976 Evil, I think that's the one that I'm going to take out.
I think I can cut that pretty easily.
I know for me, I'm definitely keeping Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
I love that movie. It's a movie that I don't even know if it quite fits the guilty pleasure, because it might be a pretty awesome movie on its own, but it's got characters named Bert and Ernie, and you need a medical supply. It's not trying to be a great film. It just kind of accidentally happened.
I think that most people's favorite line in that movie is "send more paramedics."
Absolutely.
I mean,
100%.
absolutely. And my dad used to quote that all the time. He thought it was so funny. My dad, when I was a filmmaker, was always hoping that he could play a zombie in a movie. And I think more than any other zombie movie, it was because of Return of the Living Dead.
Okay. All right. So are you keeping it?
No. I don't think I can cut Con Air with John Cusack, John Malkovich, Nicolas Cage, Steve Buscemi. Again, I think I'm a real sucker for these loaded casts in really dumb and stupid movies made by audacious directors. And Bay is ludicrous with the way he shoots things and edits things. It's one of the more tolerable Bay films, and not by that I mean I actually really do enjoy the hell out of it when I watch it. The Rock is another one that I absolutely adore.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen Con Air in a long time. I've probably seen Return of the Living Dead more. I'm stuck. I think Return of the Living Dead because Linnea Quigley. And I think that were she not in it, I don't know that I would have went with it, but because she's in it, and it is
the scene of Trash dancing in the cemetery.
No, it's phenomenal. She's hilarious. She's wonderful. Everybody in the film, honestly, is terrific. It's Dan O'Bannon. You have to go with it. I think you have to go with it. Sorry, Michael Bay. I still get The Rock, so I'm gonna go with Return of the Living Dead and Reign of Fire.
For me, it's Con Air and Return of the Living Dead. Jason, we are at the time in the episode where I reveal what film you're going to be watching for our upcoming episode. Well, here's the thing, Jay. Filmjitsu can be a little bit like a game of poker. And in the game of poker, what you need more than anything is a good poker face. Because if you flinch and your opponent sees it, you're screwed. A couple episodes back, Jason Santo flinched.
Shit. What did I do? I told something, didn't I? Oh my God.
You did, because as I was giving you the movie Blood Beach for a previous episode, you incorrectly thought I was giving you a different film.
Oh no.
You said it out loud.
No.
And you doomed yourself to watch 2003's From Justin to Kelly.
Fuck.
That's right. You did this to yourself. This is a movie where Kelly Clarkson and the guy who lost American Idol to Kelly Clarkson. I don't know a shitload about this movie. I do know that based on the fact that it's all kind of a big spring break thing, we're going to do our bottom 5 parties.
Oh, no.
Bottom 5 parties. Cinema gives us a lot of parties to consider. We are going to do dinner parties, birthday parties, Christmas parties, all sorts of things, right?
That's fun.
I wish our listeners could see what I see right now. Like the anger, the defeat, the disappointment.
Well, Mike, I will be back on our next episode, dutifully reviewing From Justin to Kelly. But until then... We have been your hosts. I am Jay.
And I am Mike.
And we will see you
next time.
Stalno mislim na te, hoću da se kate, vježbat ću sate i sate. Karate, vježbat ću dok zadnji mi kjaj izostane izađe.
Who did?
Who what?
Who did? Who could have done it then? If it wasn't me, who could have done it?
I don't know.
Because
I watched this movie for the first time with you.
Okay, because that's funny because I don't remember ever seeing it.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to chop this one out then. There we go.